Hi everyone, it's Jung here for HipKit Club. Today I'm sharing 3 cards that I created using the November 2019 HipKits. I'm going to start off with the mixed media portion so everything will have enough time to dry. I'm using the smooth white cardstock that's included in the cardstock kit. And this stencil is the HipKit Club exclusive one. I really love the pattern. It reminds me of an Argyle sweater. I'm just using some Distress texture paste, and I'm making the layer as thin as possible so it will dry quickly. And you can see the texture it provides there when I move it. I'm also going to use the Nouveau Glimmer Paste, and that's included in the December Daily Special Color Kit. And it's the silver one, and the color is called Silver Gem. And the texture is very different than the texture paste. It's very gel-like, so I can get this layer pretty thin. Once I peel up the stencil, you'll be able to see the texture and the pattern and the shininess of all the glitter. I really love how this one turned out. I don't end up using it on a card this time, but I'll definitely save it probably for my December documented album. Maybe I'll cut it down to a 3x4 and make it into a filler card. We'll see. Okay, so now I'm going to move on, and I'm using the Lindy's Stamp Gang's Magical Shaker powders and the Papa Pink and Cuckoo Cardinal Red. And I'm just gonna color a little ombre pattern, and I'm just using the other side of this same cardstock. And I'm kind of just playing around with all the mixed media. I don't have any ideas yet, but I just wanted to use some of the mixed media items and see what makes it onto the card. The reason I'm doing my mixed media at the beginning is I want everything to dry by the time I decide to make my cards. So I'm using the pink and red colors to make sort of an ombre pattern on my paper with the paintbrush. And then between each layer, I'm going to take my heat gun and dry the layers. And I think I do this a total of 3 or 4 times, but I won't make you watch them all. The reason I'm painting 3 or 4 layers is because I want that saturation of color, but I also want a smooth transition, and I don't really want to see the brush strokes. Okay, so while that mixed media is drying, I'm going to pull out some of the other pieces in my kits to see what I might use on my cards. This is the HipKit Club exclusive ephemera pack, and I'm just pulling a few pieces from there. And that is the HipKit Club exclusive stamp set, and I know I'm going to be stamping out some sentiments. So also off camera, I already made 2 card bases from cardstock from the cardstock kit. They are A2 size, which folded is 5.5 tall by 4.25 wide. So I already pulled out some things that I might want to use on the card you see to the left there. The little girl is super cute, and so is the penguin. So I thought I might use the You Warm My Heart sentiment on that stamp set. And since I have my stuff out, I thought I would stamp out joy. That is one of my favorite holiday words. If I see it on home decor or pillows or, on stamp sets, I'm most definitely going to stamp that out. So I decided that I wanted to heat emboss it white on black cardstock. So I'm just using my Versamark ink, which is a sticky ink. And if you noticed, I used my powder tool on my black cardstock before I began stamping. And that just helps to keep the powder, the embossing powder on the stamped image only, and then you won't have a lot of excess powder everywhere. And also I'm going to stamp my images twice just in case I mess up on one of them. That's just a habit of mine because I do tend to mess up. So I'm going to use this powder, and you see since I used the powder tool, it sticks to where I stamped and then pretty much falls away from the rest of the cardstock. Now I do have a few stragglers, and I use a dry paintbrush to get rid of them. But pretty much since I used the the powder tool, I don't have too much excess. So I let my heat gun warm up really well, and then I'm just going to heat up the embossing powder, and I love the effect that it gives. Once the embossing powder is cooled off, I'm going to take a dry rag and kind of brush away some of the excess powder left over from the powder tool. Now that the paint is dry, I decided I wanted to take my stencil and the texture paste and go right on top of it. And again, I'm going to use the thinnest layer possible. I love how this one turned out. Okay, so while I wait for those to dry, I had another idea for another card. I decided I wanted to take some pattern paper strips and make a background filled with pattern paper strips, and so I chose some of the red tones from the main kit, and these pattern papers are all Hip Kit Club exclusives, and I like the pattern on both sides, so I'm going to cut some strips. I believe there may be a 1/4 of an inch and maybe a little bit bigger. I just kind of made thin strips. It doesn't have to be perfect, and so I went ahead and did that for all the pattern papers that I chose. And then I grabbed a red glitter cardstock from my stash. I thought it would just add a little bit of pop, and I'm going to cut 2 strips from that. And this piece of printer paper is just cut down to slightly smaller than the A2 size card. And I'm going to add my adhesive to the entire thing just so I can stick on the strips and be sure that they're going to stay. I'm just going to be adding my paper strips on in a random pattern. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't put 2 reds together or 2 whites together, and I'm just going to keep going, and then once I get to a certain point, I'll snip off the excess with the intent to use them again, but obviously I trimmed way too many paper strips. Okay, so that is my pattern paper background finished. Now I'm going to trim a piece of white cardstock to about 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and that's going to lay on top of my pattern paper background. And I'm going to end up die cutting 3 circles out of it, and I'm using metal dies in my die cutting machine, but you could easily use punches. I don't think I have the 3 different size punches anymore. I got rid of them when I got my die cutting machine, but yes, you can easily use punches for that. And then I'm going to layer it on top of the pattern strips background with some foam tape to give it some dimension, and I was thinking that they would kind of be like Christmas ornaments. So I was debating whether or not to use that joy that I had stamped on black cardstock with the white embossing powder, but I decided that I wanted to stamp directly onto my white cardstock. So also I wanted to get the look of black embossing powder. So I'm going to be using my Misty stamping tool, and then I will use my VersaFine black ink. Now this is a pigment ink, so it doesn't dry right away. It stays wet for a little bit longer, so I'm able to coat it with clear embossing powder, and that way it gives me the look of a black embossed image without the mess of black powder. I guess. I hope that makes sense. Also, I'm using textured white cardstock, so the stamp and the ink doesn't reach into the grooves, I guess, of the cardstock, but I am completely okay with that. I kind of like that look. It kind of reminds me of the thickers that we get in our kits. You can see the shiny detail that the clear embossing powder added, and I love it on this card because it's going to be pretty clean and simple. So now I'm going to use some foam tape to pop up this card panel on top of the pattern paper strips. Okay, so with my T-square ruler, I was debating whether or not I wanted to draw on strings and bows to make them look like ornaments with a pen. But then I remembered we get these fabric bows with our kits, and we have gotten them before, but this time they're Christmas colored. So I'm going to try and show you how to put one together, but unfortunately, I'm kind of off camera, but I will try and explain it to you as we go. Okay, so the first thing, I'm going to take the larger piece that kind of looks like a bathing suit top, and I'm going to use a bone folder and just kind of curl it, and that just makes it easier to work with. I'll put a dab of glue in the middle and kind of fold over one side. And then I'll put a dab of glue and then fold over the other side, and it kind of makes that bow shape that you see I put in my reverse tweezers. Next, I'm going to take the small rectangle piece and I'm going to glue it to the front part, and then I'll fold over the two ends and glue those on as well. And then I will glue it onto the tail piece. Now you can make these ribbons without that tail piece, and that's why I put the rectangle piece on first. But I like it the way they look with the tail piece on there. I'm going to go ahead and attach the panel to my white card base that I had made from cardstock. And then I will glue on my 3 bows. And here is this card all finished. I love the way this one turned out. Clean and simple, just my style, but with just enough detail. Okay, on to the next one. I am going to trim down this piece that I had painted and stenciled with texture paste. I'm going to trim down another piece of white cardstock to about 4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and then I had this idea of doing this little border to the right, and I'm just kind of laying out how I want this card to look. Okay, so I'm going to attach the card panel that I made to a pink card base. And to save some time on the video, I went ahead and adhered the girl, the penguin, and my sentiment banner with some foam tape. And to finish off my card, I'm going to add a cute little heart that I got from that same ephemera pack. Sometimes I like to enhance my die cuts, especially with people or animals. I'm going to use some Nuvo drops in black, And this is from my stash, and I'm going to place them right above her eyes, and it's going to add some dimension and shine. Okay, on to my third card. Off camera, I went ahead and made a card base from red cardstock from the cardstock kit. I trimmed down that red plaid paper that I used in the pattern paper strips. And then I also trimmed down one of the white cardstocks that I used with the stencil and the white texture paste. And then I decided I wanted to use the Mistletoe Kisses sentiment from the stamp set. So I'm going to be doing some embossing, and I embossed it in white and gold embossing powder to see which I would like best. And I eventually decided that I liked the gold embossing powder version. Okay, so once I have my sentiment trimmed, I'm going to start building my card. I'm going to adhere the plaid pattern paper to the card base first. And then I will use some foam tape to adhere this stenciled panel to the plaid paper. And then I'm going to adhere the cute little deer with some more foam tape. And then I will adhere the sentiment strip with foam tape as well. I'm going to add a red heart from the Hip Kit Club exclusive chipboard sticker sheet. And then just like with the little girl, I'm going to use the Nouveau Black drops and add it to the deer's eyes and nose. And I kind of make a mistake. I put my finger in it before it dried, and then I smudged it on the body of the deer, right there on the neck particularly. So I'm going to fix my mistake by using a white gel pen and just giving the little deer a few more white spots than it had. And I left that clip in there just to show you that I try and fix my mistakes. I wanted to show you one more thing really quickly. On the stamp set, there's two ornaments that are open on the inside, and there's tiny little shapes that you can fill them with, so I just wanted to show you real quickly. I had thought about doing another card with a background filled with these ornaments, but I kind of ran out of time, but I decided to show you anyway. I'm just using some Distress Oxide ink that I have on my desk. It's from a color kit from a long time ago. So you can see there I stamped the ornament, and then I stamped a star right in the middle. And then I'm going to show you again with a snowflake. There's also a little Christmas tree and I think another design, but I just wanted to show you how you could get some more use out of these stamps. So here are my cards finished. I loved this pattern paper stripped ornament. The little deer is super cute even with my mistake. And then You Warm My Heart card. I thought it was super sweet with a penguin. He has on a little hat. So I hope you enjoyed my video and picked up some tips and tricks along the way. I will have a few links in the info bar below, so make sure you check that out. Please like and subscribe, and again, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.